What's up? Welcome back, Pod. Your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan. I'm here with my co-host Dave Martinson. Dave, more sad news because when we started, the really high-profile artist pass away. Prince, notably, was near the beginning of the Nowstalgia run. I think we also had Snape, I'm forgetting his name at the moment, from
Alan
Harry
Rickman.
Potter. Yeah, Alan Rickman passing away around that time. We had another big artist die this past week on last Friday. Avicii, 28 years old, found dead. I was wondering because I had a really sad reaction to this. Actually, I'm wondering what your reaction was, knowing that we were both in college at the same time, and kind of the impact Avicii's career was having, especially on the college population around that time.
Yeah, no, I was reading a kind of like an obit piece, and I actually was kind of sad. Like I was like, wow, I really do feel sad. But yeah, to your point, our age of millennials, college age around that time, like 2011, was really the prime of his career, and yeah, he was just really omnipresent for a while, kind of that. It's weird because you listen to that kind of house music now. Obviously, Level's his biggest hit, which was jumped way up in streams. It'll probably chart for the upcoming week, of course, because everyone was going back to it. But like you listen to Levels or like Silhouettes or like Seek Bromance, and it's like, wow, this definitely does feel like a generation removed from Marshmello and like Chainsmokers, But he really did directly influence those guys, and like Kygo is like an Avicii clone, basically, and he's kind of said as much. But yeah, no, it's definitely one of the first, maybe the first like big musician that was kind of big for us growing up. A lot of the greats like Bowie and Prince, like they affected a lot of other generations, like Tom Petty recently. But like, has anyone that was kind of like for us, our age people, has anyone passed recently? Nothing comes to mind.
The first person that you said, or when you said that, was Amy Winehouse, but I think she was even a little bit before us. Like the impact of her work and the age we were at when she was at her stardom was like high school, probably late middle school, high school. So she was a little bit before us, but I can't really think of anyone else that goes along that same parameters. You mentioned Levels, but I mean, I feel like every party I went to as Sienna or off campus at that period, I heard an Avicii song at some point, whether it was, Wake Me Up, Hey Brother, I feel like was big when I started going to music festivals. And then he got really into partying, and obviously that whole scene is very drug and substance abuse based, unfortunately. And he had health issues and then stopped touring 2 years ago. So I actually never saw Avicii, even though I feel like I was a pretty avid festival goer there for a while. Did you ever get to see him live?
No, I haven't seen many DJs. Our mutual friend Nick, though, did see him. He's seen a lot of DJs, and he was a big fan, of course.
Yeah.
I did note on Spotify this past Saturday, Avicii was the overall top stream artist with 42.9 million streams, which was even more than J. Cole's 27. We'll get to J. Cole's album later, but crazy. But everyone was definitely going back to the well for that one.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sad loss. It's always like the what if game, like what their career would have been like, but Avicii just had such a wide reach, for the impact he had on that genre in general. So definitely.
One last note for Avicii. He's one of the few EDM songs where I like the original, and I also really like the high profile remix, in this case from Skrillex.
Yeah.
I feel like those are songs where both people will listen to both. Usually with a remix, you just pick one or the other, and that's like your go-to. But I feel like for Levels and the Levels remix, they both kind of had their own lane.
Yeah, Skrillex actually wrote a note about how like he never really was friends with Avicii, but he'll never take Levels out of his set just because it's that awesome of a song and one that he respects. So definitely a cool move by him. You saw a lot of people outpouring. So if you were a fan of Avicii, please leave a comment on this video, on our videos, and subscribe to the channel and tell us your experiences, or hit us up on Twitter at NowstalgiaPod. Also, you can find all of our stuff, SoundCloud.com/NowstalgiaPod, or most platforms that carry podcasts. probably jumping into my favorite living artist, Kanye West. We talked about how he's back on the tweeter last week. He's been kind of giving out his philosophy on life, which is something, we talk about fake deep, and I mean, Kanye is like the epitome of fake deep.
For sure.
But he's been dropping some really cool news, at least in the music world. Pusha T album, 5/25, May 25th. New Kanye solo album, 7 tracks long, dropping June 1st. New Kanye Cudi collab, dropping June 8th. Also calling themselves Kids See Ghosts, which, I mean, we'll talk about that in a minute. New Nas album, dropping June 16th. A new Tiana Taylor album, dropping June 22nd. All being produced by Kanye West himself. I mean, my first thought with this dude's going through a manic episode if he's able to do all this while also dropping a new Yeezy line. But I'm very excited about all this. What was your take?
Yeah, no, my Good Fridays are back. In this case, not song releases, but whole albums. Pretty crazy. If you think about all these artists involved, I don't know how much of a drain this really is on Ye. Pusha T, in fact, if the album is still called King Push, it's been a long time coming. His last album was December 2015, so been a fuck ton. 2015. It's been a while. Cudi, same deal, and Tiana Taylor, same deal as well. So, and then Nas' album was done, according to Nas himself, on the DJ Khaled album back in 2016. So Nas probably scrapped a lot of that and did a lot of new work. But either way, I'm not sure how much of a stress this really would have been on Kanye the production angle. And we talked about his Wyoming escapades and all the people he had flying out to him, like last month. How much of that work was just Kanye album versus people coming to work with him? Like that was his kind of his home base. Who knows? But in the meantime, fucking exciting time, man. I mean, it's kind of funny packing the calendar too, because Pusha T's dropping the same day as Churches. Kanye and Cudi, same day as Georgia Smith, and then Nas, same day as Chromeo. And it's like, wow, those people have our date, and then it's going to get trounced.
And what about Drake?
Yeah, Drake June 2018. I have a feeling Drake will do late June.
Yeah, gotta be the 22nd or 29th.
Yeah, because if you think about Drake and Kanye's careers, commercially, Drake's been eating Kanye's lunch ever since he started. I mean, Thank Me Later outsold My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by a wide margin, and then Take Care absolutely destroyed Watch the Throne. And obviously nothing was the same, really beat out Yeezus. So Drake has always had more money, but Kanye has the stands, and you'll see that on Twitter where all of his tweets get fuck ton of retweets. But exciting ass time. We'd be remiss not to mention, or at least question, if all these dates hold.
That's what I was gonna say. How many do you think actually drop when they're supposed to?
I mean, do we have any reason to believe that he's going to be more reliable? I mean, last time with Life of Pablo, he was being a perfectionist about it, if you want to be charitable. And has anything changed? Who knows? But him releasing an album and then a duo album a week later, that's the thing I don't know about. I mean, Pusha and Tiana Taylor, Nas, sure, those, why not? I have no reason to doubt them. They're not Kanye albums, but the Kanye albums themselves, I don't know, until a single comes, even if a single comes out, it's really tough until it's actually there, because everyone was waiting at Yeezy season 3 for Life of Pablo to actually come out, and, it took forever. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think the solo one will be okay. I think the Nas one I'm questionable on because it's been rumored for so long. I'll believe it when I see it type of thing. Same with Pusha. Although I think Pusha's is probably more likely going to happen than Nas. But the Cudi Kanye collab, I mean, one that it's just those two collabing is kind of interesting. Cudi's always been on Kanye's albums in some way, or at least for most of them in the later half of his career so far. But now kind of creating this group, Kids See Ghosts, I mean, kind of a strange name. I mean, I'm looking forward to it because I think about My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Probably one of my favorite songs off that is Gorgeous, which Cudi is featured on. He sings the hook. He's fantastic. So
Welcome to Heartbreak was where they first popped up on 808s, and
even on Spaceman, Father Stretched My Hands.
Yeah, did they have a Yeezus song? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
No,
I don't think they were in a good place at that time, right? They've been, I don't know.
That's true. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, they have a great rapport, and I think they kind of actually complement each other well. So that should be cool. I actually really liked the Cudi song "The Rage" on the Rampage soundtrack that came out like a week or two ago. I was like, oh, this is like surprising, like kind of like vintage Cudi. I really like this. Just the right amount of hums, but it was good.
I still have to check that out, but I'm definitely definitely very excited for all these projects. June's gonna be fucking fire month. So
Yeah. And you know what else? This puts a lot of pressure on Ray Shremmerd. They got to get Shrem Life 3 out the door between now and early May. And then ASAP Rocky, another guy who's just starting up an album cycle. I mean, and you want to have any chart play, Rocky really needs chart play right now. I mean, it's tough. And then Travis Scott's Astro World, I mean, unless Kanye tweets out the date, I'm assuming that's in the fall at this point. So definitely constricting the calendar on everyone. Really cool.
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot of those projects get pushed back just so that they're not colliding with probably the force that's going to be Drake and Kanye. Why don't we jump to some things that happened this week, some culture we consumed. Westworld Season 2, Episode 1. Ooh, it was an interesting episode. A lot of like resetting, entertaining at points. I felt very confused and muddled at points.
You don't say.
I mean, I don't know if the two timelines were confusing to you. Here's a third one. Let's add another aspect into the mix. But the quote that stood out to me about this was little what's his name in the show? Little Ford. Right. Everything in here is code. Okay, cool. Everything in here is code. Everything in this episode seemed like code. Break it down for me, Dave. What stood out to you?
Yeah, no, these violent delights have violent podcasts. Subscribe on Nowstalgia, please. I know. I actually liked the timeline aspect in this because for like a wireframe, I think it's smart. You have the one timeline that's immediately after the season 1 finale when Dolores shoots Ford and everyone starts getting fucked, right? And then you have 2 weeks later where Ford wakes up on the beach and there's finally like a security like reinforcement presence fixing the damage, right? Figuring out what's going on. So having the season progress as we have those two timelines meet, I think could be cool. At least the construct I think has potential, but of course the concerns we brought up last week are still present. I mean, in terms of confusion, I mean, they just set up a lot of shit. Like, all right, we have the tiger, Shogun world. Let's get there. There's this new body of water. All these dead hosts. Apparently, Bernard did it. Oh, Teddy's dead. All right, but Teddy's with Dolores. So there's this. You have no way of foreseeing what's going to happen. We just have to let it play out. Yeah. I also really liked the moment where they brought in Sizemore, the dickhead like narrative guy. Yeah. Kind of brought him back in for comic relief. Yep. And Maeve turned the tables on him, having him like stripped down in front of him. And they also showed full frontal nudity on a premiere drama for a man. Yeah. So I thought that was a good moment for the show. And then negatives, I mean, Tessa Thompson, she's nowhere to be seen in the current timeline. Does she die? I hope not, but
I hope not either, but it makes sense. I mean, I can't imagine she's going to be super prominent in the show.
She's
how
so busy.
Does she have? Yeah.
I mean, how much time was she even on set? Who fucking knows?
Exactly.
Shooting all these movies. But yeah, I think, a lot of the problems with it just being a lot of table setting and getting everyone up to speed. Character A, meet character B, Doob C. Kind of typical for a premiere for a new season. So that's fine. It's not really much of a critique. But it was a long episode. It was 69 minutes. Not nice. I think that should be trimmed down a little bit, especially because the finale was 90 minutes, and apparently the 4th episode of the season is an hour and 11 minutes. So you need to justify length, and it's not just a broad statement of quality, So
yeah, man. I mean, it wasn't an episode that I went to bed and I was like, I probably didn't need to stay up to watch this. I could have caught it some other time, but because I want to bring the culture to the people, wanted to get on it. The Bernard stuff is interesting. I think in the sense that, like you said, with the timeline, you're seeing him in the future. Obviously, it's going to catch up at some point and fill in those gaps. I also think it's interesting that possibly you see him talking to Dolores and maybe it's actual alive Bernard and not robot Bernard, which
it could be Arnold, like a real another. Yeah.
I also kind of thought the stuff with Maeve is by far the stuff I'm most invested in, and Maeve just in general is the person I'm rooting for. And I think the man in black had a nice moment when he was kind of talking about how there's actual stakes in this now and the game is real, which does add an element to this, because obviously if the hosts get killed, at least as far as I'm aware, there's not going to be a way to really like reboot them or fix them with the way things are at the moment. Maybe that will change. So yeah, I think adding stakes to this definitely adds something. I mean, there's still parts of this like Dolores. I just don't give a fuck about Dolores still, but obviously I'm supposed to, because it seems like she's the antagonist in this at this point.
At least it's more clear. She's not just like the vehicle for the mystery, you know? Like, all right, we have to go take the other world for us. Okay, fine. At least there's a motivation. At least there's a purpose now. We'll see what happens. Obviously, Teddy. I don't know. But another like the Man in Black stuff, I thought was good. Like the first scene he has, he realizes it's everything he wanted. The stakes are real.
Yeah,
cool. And then there has the whole other scene with Ford, which just kind of like hammers it home with a big whiteboard in case you didn't notice or catch it the first time. I thought that was a little superfluous. Another thing, when you first get the present timeline, you realize, oh, Westworld and all the other parks are on some island in the Asian Pacific area. Yeah. I was like, all right, I guess this is a big ass island. If there's like a Grand Canyon thing and all these other worlds, whatever, kind of this quickly answers a mystery that didn't really need answering. But the one thing I'm hopeful for, and I didn't really even catch it the first time until I was, reading shit online. But one of Bernard's flashbacks, there's one with Dolores in like a black dress, like a contemporary getup, not like Westworld attire. So are we going to see more of the outside non-parks world that Westworld takes place in? I hope so, because the society that allows you to go play rape and murder is actually probably more interesting than the world where the rape and murder happens, But
what about that Shogun world, though?
Yeah, dog. We'll see.
Can't wait to see where that tiger is coming from and why it's washed up on that shore. So go ahead.
Also, Luke Hemsworth, not dead. Don't know how, but he's not dead.
Definitely some surprises, some good stuff, some not so good stuff. We'll be checking out Westworld after a couple more episodes, or if there's an episode that really stands out, we'll be commenting on it. Give us your thoughts at Nowstalgia Pod. I know that a lot of people stand for this show, so we want to hear from you. Tell us why we should like it more. Something I think you liked a lot more than his last album, J. Cole's KOD. I saw you tweeting about it. You seem to be very high on this album. Talk me into it, because I am not as high on this album.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is that J. Cole's fourth album, For Your Eyes Only, was not very good. Wasn't nominated for a Grammy. It did fucking big numbers, 492,000 first week, because Cole's a force. But it was an album that was preachy, slow, not fun to listen to, really. Only really one song I ever go back to is Neighbors, which I think is a really good song. But overall, it wasn't a good record, and that came out December 2016. And that record really symbolized J. Cole as an artist, his transformation from being this kind of more woke, thoughtful guy. He's like the same age as Drake, and he's been around just about as long. But his career has really changed up over then, and now he's kind of like raps contrarian, which I think is a good role for him. But KOD has a lot of the similar messaging For Your Eyes Only, but I think it's a little more focused, and more importantly, the beats are better. He doesn't sing as much, only sings hooks, which is fine. And these are songs that I actually want to listen to again, which I think is a big change from For Your Eyes Only. So I don't think it's that preachy, because the whole album isn't about what he talks about in 1985, which is like the song that's getting all the attention.
Right.
I think overall it's quite a solid record.
So when you say it's more focused, what do you see the focus of this album being?
I don't know. Well, that's the thing. Like, he does have a kind of a broad brush. I think that's the big, like, obviously, like, Cole's a punchline for stuff, and his fans are very overzealous, so there's easy jokes to be made. But a fair critique would be that he isn't as deep as he thinks he is. he's just kind of saying like basic observations. It's not that he's just saying bullshit or like fake deep shit like XXX or something. Like he actually is saying things, but maybe he still thinks it's a little deeper than it really is, you know? Which I think is a fair statement. But I mean, I think it's also like he's not Run the Jewels level lyrics, I think, which is it's a fair, you know, baseline to start with.
Yeah, I think he's a very good lyricist. I think he can write great rhymes, and he does go in on some of these songs. But I feel like if there's one song that epitomizes J. Cole and everything that he could be, but everything that he actually is, unless it's Friends, because on Friends he is like tearing everything apart and talking about all these things that make society terrible and have bad influences, and then his overall message is meditate, don't medicate, bro. J. Cole, you fucking nailed it, dude. But like, that's the thing, is that song is fucking fire until that, and then you're just like, come on. Like, if he had like something to really hammer that home, or some like awesome message, or even if it just like it led into something that seemed like it was more. But I always leave J. Cole records wanting something more, and that's the thing, is he always disappoints me.
And I think that's fair. I think that's why my still favorite J. Cole record is his third one, 2014 Forest Hills Drive, because he wasn't as ambitious lyrically on that, and he just had like 6 or 7 hits on it. And like I love all those songs. Those songs are bangers, and I saw them live and they were awesome, you know? So it was almost like a less is more project for me. Whereas KOD, I think, is kind of a return to form where he kind of has more of the hit making from 2014.
Yeah.
And then some of the lyrics from For Your Eyes Only, but without the put you to sleep beat selections of, you know, the most recent album.
Yeah. And Photograph also, just a super weird song. Just like the Oompa Loompa type, I will keep her for myself. I was like, all right, bro, do your thing. But yeah, 1985 bangs. Like,
yeah,
that song goes hard.
I mean, what's thinking about that? 1985 is more or less a trap beat, you know, but then you listen to it and he starts off with a Kanye "We Don't Care" interpolation, which was fucking fire. I wonder how many people actually catch that, you know, young fans, but that was great. And then he just kind of goes in on SoundCloud generation and glorification of, you know, lean and activists and Xanax and shit. And he doesn't say any rapper by name, but Lil Pump already responded, and he was like, "Congrats for dissing a 17-year-old," which in a sense is like, all right, that's a fair response, I suppose. But I still think it was a, you know, he had a good message on it, and like you see the cover with all the kids, like, you know, strung out on all the various popular drugs right now. And I think, you know, someone needed to say these things, and it really helps when it's coming from someone people care about. You know, like if Aria Rugged Man was saying all this shit, he probably does already say this shit, like no one gives a fuck, you know. But like it's someone with real influence and people that has real respect, I think it goes a longer way. And just amazing song.
Yeah, quick side note, that album art is fucking fire. Great. Yeah, definitely. Great album art. So yeah, I mean, this J. Cole record, it's like a C plus. I think he's got better works ahead.
I mean, I think this is easily his. It's bare minimum third best record. Depends where you have Born Sinner, his second one. I still have 2014 first, just for the sheer hits. But I mean, I think this has a lot of good cuts. I think the intro, the title track KOD, which broke the Spotify streaming record, beating out Drake, crazy. ATM, I think, is good, or his video. And then like songs like Kevin's Heart, where it has like a singy hook, but like it actually has like a good message. I think there's a lot here.
Yeah, there's definitely. It's just like when 2014 Forest Hills came out, like people were talking about him and Kendrick in the same stratosphere, and now Kendrick has catapulted himself so far above, and he, I mean, I would say lyrically, or at least like the way that they write and deliver their rhymes are pretty, I think, on the same level. But Kendrick is just so much more inventive and takes so many more chances that land artistically. It's just, they're not even close at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Kendrick's so granular with his references and his double entendres and stuff. It's tougher to really compare anyone to that. But I also think that's kind of like a arrow in what do you call it, Cole's quiver, you know, because we're comparing him to Kendrick because he's basically the next best thing in that department. Just because he's definitively not Kendrick Lamar isn't necessarily a bad thing in my opinion. And I think this record really does help stabilize his status as in that top 3 alongside Drake.
Yeah, man. Not everybody can be LeBron, I guess. So sometimes you got to be.
And first week, it's going to be projected 375 to 390,000 first week. Biggest album release of the year.
Pretty good.
Beating out Cardi.
And for an album that wasn't even promoted either.
Exactly.
Pretty great. Why don't we jump to You Were Never Really Here? So this is a movie you saw a couple weeks ago. I was able to catch it this weekend. Lynn Ramsey wrote and directed this thing. Joaquin Phoenix stars as Joe. This was premiered at Cannes last May, and Phoenix won the Best Actor award, and Ramsey got the Best Screenplay award at Cannes for this. Also received a 7-minute standing ovation after its first showing. So a lot of hype around this. It's got an 87% Rotten Tomatoes currently. It's on limited release, not in a lot of theaters right now. I know that you like this movie, and there's a lot to like about this movie, but I want to start off by asking, were you as frustrated as I was with the first 30 minutes of this movie? Because it's so it relies so heavily on the editing of it, you know, and it's done for effect, and it makes total sense by the end of the movie why they're doing that, because you're kind of piecing things together as Joe is for a lot of it. But for the first 30 minutes, I just wanted them to show me a scene and show me that whole scene with him and his mother and his dad when he's a kid, or show me the whole scene about some flashback to when he's in the army. I just wanted to get it, and then it all comes together. It's so it feels so good, but I was halfway through. I was like, fuck, I just want to know what's going on.
Yeah, the storytelling is definitely unconventional because, as you learn, Joe is not well, PTSD, mental instability, whatever it may be. But yeah, I mean, Lynn Ramsey doesn't waste a single frame in this movie. Everything's done for great effect. And this is actually only her 4th movie. I haven't seen any of her films, but apparently her 1999 movie Ratcatcher is a modern classic in the film circles. So I want to actually check out her movies. This is her first movie since 2011. So apparently she's held in quite a high esteem, but is not the most prolific director. But so definitely nice to discover someone new that I'm clearly missing out on. But yeah, in terms of the editing, I mean, there was that motif with the subway going left to right, and the vantage of New York City. I thought that was a really cool shot. And then I also really noticed when there's a few moments of it when Joe's driving the car and he's swaying in the seat and the camera's kind of shifting on the hood. And I was like, that's fucking Taxi Driver. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was Taxi Driver, and it was Heath Ledger's Joker. And I was yes, give me this as the Joker right here.
And I think that's the moment when I was like, oh, wow, Joaquin is just so committed to this performance and is doing it in a movie that is incredibly unconventional in terms of the storytelling. And I was like, wow, I was just kind of blown away. And that says a lot because the plot of this movie is something that when you're initially watching it, as you said, you're like, just give me a little more. What is going on? You realize the plot is simple, but also not the point, you know? And I love that.
Yeah, it's a really good way to put it, that the plot is simple but not the point, because it was funny. There's pieces of it that you don't even know if that's really how things go down. I mean, I guess spoilers if you're listening to this and haven't watched the movie yet, skip forward a couple seconds. But the whole thing with the Lieutenant Governor Votto, or the running mate Votto, committing suicide, you don't know if that actually happens. You don't know how the deals go down between the governor and lieutenant governor, or the senator, I guess. And really, you're relying on Joe as a pretty unreliable narrator to piece this whole thing for you together and let you make your judgments on what's going on. And I think Phoenix plays everything with such it's such realism. Even for someone who's so messed up, there were points when you question his motives, why is he doing this? Is he also got kind of this affection for young children in this at points, and you're like,
right.
why did, when he kills that henchman and he lays down with him on the kitchen floor, what is he getting out of that, and how does that play into his psychology? It's a really awesome film that really dives deep into somebody who's clearly unwell. The score also was
a lot of music in this movie.
Yeah, and perfect. You know, I mean, they use a lot of like old time music, but like the score just sounded like people were like plucking piano strings. Was freaking something I'd never heard, but it actually reminded me a lot of. Um, I'm blanking again on the name, but it was a movie last year that had the guy from Nine Inch Nails who did it.
Oh, I don't remember.
If I'm gonna look it up and I'll get back to you, you're gonna be like, why don't you remember that name? What else stood out to you about this movie?
I thought the moments with his mom were really good. Both provided you like great levity, like they actually had like some good like back and forths that were funny. And it also clearly grounded Joe as a character and like kind of provided like his whole like motivation for persevering, you know. I think there was a time where that burial scene in the lake with the rocks and stuff that could have, I mean, that was a little heavy handed. But that could have like gone off the rails. But I think it ultimately works because the rest of the movie is so strong. And then I mean, if anything's gimmicky, it's probably the hammer fight he has through like the whorehouse or whatever, the sex house. But it's done through security cameras. Like you didn't need to shoot it that way, but it didn't like detract or anything. And like, I mean, like again, like Joaquin, you have like the moments with his mom that are so lighthearted, the moments with the girl that are so tender, and then the actual fighting scenes with the hammer, which are so fucking brutal, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. The ending too, where he has like the suicide fantasy, and all the hallucinations and stuff. It was, you know, the story is about how he is caught up in this, I don't know, plot to save this girl that goes horribly awry and everybody around him gets killed, but like really it's about him dealing with this trauma. Like it's a pretty significant movie, I think, in that regard, because I don't think anyone's ever, at least none that I can recall, really done a look into how like that kind of childhood trauma plays into a situation like this. I don't know how many people would even think of this, honestly.
No, definitely not.
Why don't we move on though to something that I know that we're both really pumped for. We'll be talking about next week on Nowstalgia Pod. Avengers Infinity War. So give us a little background on this movie. I mean, there's a lot to go into, but give us like the basic, what is this?
What is it? Film 18 for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I believe. 10 years in the running, ever since Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk started off in 2008. This is the culmination, well, not even culmination, but it's kind of like the culmination thus far of Phase 3, which kicked off with Captain America Civil War in summer 2016. It's a movie we've known about for a long time. The threat of Thanos, played by Josh Brolin, was first teased in Avengers, where you learn that he was the one prompting Loki to have the Chitauri people invade New York City, right? I mean, that was in 2012. That was a long time ago. That was the last movie of Phase 1. You know, there's been a lot of Marvel movies since then, a lot of movies in general. And the fact that we're finally at this point, it's kind of hard to believe, because I remember thinking, it's so far in distance. I don't even care what happens. It's so far away. Now it's here. We've seen the trailers, a lot of spots for it. It's crazy.
Yeah, 10 years in the making. I mean, Robert Downey Jr.'s first Iron Man came out, I think it was actually 10 years ago, right? 2008. So
exactly, yeah.
Kind of crazy that this has all led up to this. There's a lot of talk about who's going to be left standing after this movie. I mean, to kind of create some stakes in this, people have to die. And also there's actors who have been doing this for a while that I think don't want to do it anymore. And also I think they probably want to cut the fat and say, let's move on and put these people at the forefront and kind of start building around these new characters. You know, obviously like T'Challa, the new Spider-Man, Chris Pratt's Star-Lord, all people that I think they know are going to be their starting rotation for a while. So we wanted to look at, say, like what we think is going to happen in this movie, particularly who we think is going to not make it through this movie. It's also important to remember they could make it through this movie and not make it through Avengers 4.
Yeah, I think that's something that's kind of being lost with a lot of discussion about like who's going to die. Because like, the general assumption is that like the stakes have been relatively safe up to this point, but now Thanos is going to kick some ass and heads are going to roll. And also conveniently, in the real world, contracts are up and actors want to leave, right? It's the perfect storm. But how much of this actually happens in Infinity War versus what happens in the sequel next May? And the sequel does not have an official name. Some people are thinking that it may be a spoiler, the title, so that's why they're withholding it. And like there's the potential that this kind of like sets up Marvel to be much more cosmic-y in space. Obviously, we get Captain Marvel next year. We assume a Doctor Strange 2 would happen. Kevin Feige just talking about a Nova movie. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is happening. So like Marvel probably is not going to, and Kevin Feige said this, Marvel's not going to look the same once this final Infinity War movie comes out. And part of that's going to be because some of these heavy hitters that we've known for a while, played by big actors, are not going to be here anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so why don't we jump in with some predictions? I mean, who feel like the odds-on favorites to not make it through this movie?
Yeah. Well, I think he's kind of have to start with who's definitely surviving, and you can say who's surviving in both of these. I think you mentioned them right. Guarantees. Mm-hmm. Tom Holland's Peter Parker. Yep. Guaranteed. We have Homecoming sequels coming, but he was a home run. Sony also kind of owns him. They're not killing him. No way. T'Challa's Black Panther. Literally the highest grossing superhero movie of all time. They're not killing him.
No, we're just going to cut that guy out. We don't want that.
Plus, he has at least one Black Panther movie on his contract after the Infinity War sequel. So no way. I think Doctor Strange is pretty safe. We don't have the sequel officially announced yet. I think that's just like they've been holding. Like it's definitely like in production behind the scenes, but they haven't announced yet. I think that's kind of because like let's let Infinity War happen first thing, right? Yeah. Ant-Man, Scott Lang, Paul Rudd. Well, Ant-Man 2 comes out a few months afterwards, so there you go. But again, he's also new, hasn't been in a lot of the movies.
Right.
And then I think most of the Guardians of the Galaxy are safe, at least Chris Pratt for sure. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is happening. We assume Adam Warlock will be in that movie, and James Gunn like really loves those characters, and he's been a caretaker of the Guardians, right? So do they kill like one of the supporting players, maybe Nebula or Gamora, considering they're the daughters of Thanos? Could see that, but most of them will make it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also interesting because I go back and forth on Black Widow because I'm pretty sure they're doing a Black Widow movie, correct?
Yeah, not officially announced, but that was one of the few like Marvel like reports that actually was in the trades earlier in the year that there's early work on that. And I think if anything, like there's also like the sense of will the character die or will the character like leave and then be technically alive in case they bring her back. And like maybe Black Widow's like gone, not with the Avengers anymore, but then if they want to make that movie they can, or that movie's going to happen in the past, like who knows, you know?
And I think Bruce Banner, the Hulk, supposedly that there's what's his name, Mark Ruffalo has 6 more movies on his contract. It's been very publicly talked about. Now this is also the type of thing where people could be putting this sort of news out there or intentionally talking up these things to lead you off the set. So
yeah, well, it was a 6-film contract, but he's only done Avengers 1 and 2 and Ragnarok. He wasn't in Civil War, so there's still half of that left. And Universal kind of owns the solo rights, so I don't think they want to like get rid of that possibility either. So Hulk's pretty safe, I think, too.
All right. Anyone else that's safe that you think is worth mentioning?
I guess most of the supporting players in Black Panther are safe. At least Shuri, Okoye, M'Baku. But I think most of those people, if not all of them, will make it out just for the sake of keeping the Black Panther area safe as well. So yeah, I think and like supporting characters like Wong, Doctor Strange is homie, played by Benedict Wong. I think he's pretty safe. Wasp, obviously.
Hawkeye. Yes, no.
No, he's definitely not. He's definitively not safe, dude.
Not safe. No, but what about Anthony Mackie's
Falcon?
Falcon.
Again, another one who's you can't like declaratively say. I think they're definitely in a separate tier. Yeah.
I actually think Mackie's more safe than someone like Hawkeye because if Cap goes down, which is heavily rumored that Captain America will not make it through this movie, I think that he would be someone to kind of step into that role. Him and Bucky, I mean, Sebastian Stan is going to be the new Captain America. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've gone back and forth on that a lot too. It's because do you want to keep both Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie around post Chris Evans? You don't have to, but maybe you could. Apparently, Sebastian Stan has that monster contract that's not anywhere close to being done. But Anthony Mackie also is like a big fan of working on these movies. He's like not tired of it. He's happy to be involved.
Right.
So both of those characters have been Captain America in the comics before, so you could see either way. But yeah, I mean, probably both will make it, you know. But you can't rule it out. But Hawkeye, like Jeremy Renner isn't billed on the poster at all. That's like a thing in contracts. Like that's not just like they don't just do that to hide him. So like he's barely in this movie, but he also was at that Vanity Fair shoot. Like there's the picture of him on one of the magazine covers. So
with
he's
that
in
new haircut, dog.
Yeah, and does that just mean like Hawkeye's like a quick death, the way like Vision basically gets killed in the trailer? So Thanos gets the stone. Who knows? But I think Hawkeye and Vision are my two. Like maybe Cap survives till the next one, but like Hawkeye and Vision, like write them off, doc.
I mean, Vision is pretty much the only one that we know for certain, but Hawkeye's definitely up there. I could also see something where Hawkeye actually ends up being like just having everybody go to his safe house and just like hang out for a bit and pulls the team back together. You never know.
Sure.
Jeremy Renner's just flipping safe houses and, trying to get the team on board. All right. So who else here? What about Loki?
I think Loki kicks it at least by the second one.
I agree. I think Loki's definitely not going to be there. But what about Thor? So Thor's an interesting one. You see him taking quite the beating in the trailer, getting his head crushed. But he also has expressed that he wants to do another movie with the director of Ragnarok.
Yeah, Taika Waititi. Yeah. Apparently, the Russos had said that the two characters with the most screen time are Thanos and Thor, and then Doctor Strange is close behind. So does Thor get a lot of screen time and then make it out? I don't know. I mean, Ragnarok was kind of a great, convenient bow on that Thor trilogy, and like Loki, his usefulness to the story isn't there anymore. I think it's been a great arc for him in general, and Thor's kind of similar. It's just like if Thor does survive, like what is the future in this cosmic MCU phase 4? Like is he gonna be like a bit player that comes in once in a while, similar to like how Robert Downey Jr. was in Homecoming? I don't know, but he's one I can't quite like figure out. I'm like, I could really see him dying, but also I feel like they wouldn't kill any of the big three. They wouldn't kill more than one in the same movie, I don't think.
Yeah, I think if because we haven't really talked about, but Iron Man seems like another person that probably is not going to make it through both of these movies. I think if anything, I would see Captain America dying in this first one as like something that like unifies the team together, so people rally around, and then probably Iron Man bites the dust in the second one. Although you see all these people getting their stuff kicked in by Thanos. I mean, you see Iron Man taking a real beating. You see Captain America holding that fist. Like, there's going to be some action for sure. I like your predictions on Nebula and Gamora. I think that they're at least on the block, if nothing else. Any others that we should be looking for in this?
I think Scarlet Witch is actually safe. She's a character that most fans were pretty ambivalent to her. Like, no one's like a huge Scarlet Witch head. But I don't think that's a reason to kill her. If anything, that's a reason to build her up. I think DC is proving right now that female characters in these movies are really popular and deserve to be there. So that's kind of the case for keeping Black Widow around as well. It's just build these characters up. I don't think a Scarlet Witch solo movie is ever going to happen, but maybe she could find her way into a Doctor Strange film. She has that romance with Vision. Apparently, they've been doing press saying that there's more of that in this movie, which will probably be short-lived when Vision gets his ass kicked. But yeah, I think she's safe too. So I guess you have to figure out, who do you think dies now versus later, Iron Man or Cap? I think ultimately both will be gone by the end of these two Infinity War movies. I guess there's a possibility that Downey, like Stark, walks away for good in case they want to have him come back in 10 years. I guess it's a possibility, but Steve Rogers, Captain America, definitely dying by at least the end of the next one.
Yeah, it's interesting because you talk about Red Witch, and it's type of thing where I think if you only kill her off, or or only killing off supporting people, it almost cheapens this. It's like,
exactly,
you've been building up to this promise, and then everybody's making it through. Like, what are the real stakes here? I think someone like Captain America, someone like Iron Man has to die to make Thanos seem like the villain that he's been built up to be.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other predictions for this movie? Anything else you want to throw out there?
I mean, if you watch the trailer, I mean, it seems like a lot of the characters are going to be in Wakanda. All the Black Panther people, Cap is there with Bucky and Scarlet Witch, and then you have Iron Man in the back, like the Hulkbuster armor from Age of Ultron, right? Assumingly that's Stark. So a lot of people are there. And then how does Doctor Strange fit into this? You know, this is only his second movie, and if you don't count Ragnarok, and this will be his first time meeting most of the team. I mean, they have that joke with him meeting Spider-Man in the trailer, which is kind of funny. So how does like the cosmic element work? There's that he has like Thanos has like I forget the name of them. It's like his like 4 horsemen or whatever, one of which is voiced by Carrie Coon randomly.
Yeah.
So seeing those people, which I assume will just be in fights, I don't think any of them will be consequential, but that'll be cool. And I think ultimately, I think the thing about this movie is it's unlikely to match Black Panther in box office. I think that's obvious. And you just kind of have to these expectations are so high that it's probably gonna be treated unfairly. I don't know if the movie can deliver on all the hype, you know, especially because it's the first of 2. And if you look at, you know, dollars, I think, you know, I don't think it's like it's not a guarantee to be the second highest grossing MCU movie, but it doesn't make it a failure either. You know, they're playing against themselves at this point. But it's a very interesting movie, both in and out of universe.
That was actually gonna be my question: is like, how do you set expectations for something like this? Never been done before, especially on this magnitude, and you know, it's gonna be pulling. I mean, it's gonna be definitely the highest grossing movie probably for the next couple weekends. The thing is, though, Deadpool also comes out May 23rd? Is that correct?
17th?
May 17th.
Well, yeah. If we recall, Infinity War was originally the first weekend of May, and they pushed it up to April 27th, this Friday, to match the international release date. Traditionally, all the Marvel movies were released internationally a week before. Maybe that was a spoiler decision. Maybe that was to give Solo some more breathing room. We don't know, but either way, it doesn't have any competition for the first 2 weekends following.
Right.
Then Deadpool 2, followed by Solo short after. Sorry, Ocean's 8 is in there too, but that's not a serious contender for it. So it will definitely have the runway to make a shit ton of money.
Yeah, and I mean, regardless of what movies it was up against, it's going to make a shit ton of money. But especially after Black Panther took off the way it did, it's almost like this movie can only come up short, you know, because people are always going to be comparing it to that. Right. But I think what this movie can do is set up next year's movie to really ball out and to really showcase some new people, really showcase the new team, and build on that next stage. Because in reality, that's what this has all come to, is that they built up this first stage. They're like, okay, this is the apex of it. Then we're moving into the second one. This is how we're going to transition it out, with some major players dying, some other ones moving to the forefront, and here we go. You know, it's a machine.
And that second Infinity War film for 2019, I mean, it's so hard to predict anything that happens, and that's probably why the title is being held. Like, it's probably going to be cosmic as fuck. There might be time shifting elements with Doctor Strange. Who knows? Like, it's going to change a lot of things. But like everything we kind of thought of with like the main fight is probably going to culminate in this movie coming out this Friday.
Yeah,
so definitely interesting. And this actually will be the first year that Star Wars isn't the top movie of the year at the box office, because first Black Panther is number 3 all time already, but also Solo isn't expected to make Force Awakens money. It's going to make probably just Rogue One money. And Rogue Money when he was really good, of course, $1 billion, but it's not enough to top number 3 all time. So will Infinity War also outgrow Solo? Probably. So interesting year.
Definitely going to be interesting. And I almost consider that actually, I mean, we talked about the problems with Solo, but Rogue One was a story. I mean, it only had elements and pieces of the real Star Wars story. And obviously this Han Solo story is different from the actual like Star Wars trilogy, and that all that IP. But I mean, you have Han Solo, and the fact that we're saying, it's probably going to only make Rogue One money. It's like Han Solo was one of the most beloved characters in Star Wars. So to not be able to capitalize on him, I think would be, or at least to like the extent that the other movies have been, is actually a miss by Disney.
It's weird too, because I mean, on one hand, this is coming out only 5.5, 6 months out from Last Jedi, I suppose the traditional year to year in December. So the whole Star Wars fatigue angle that is naturally happening at the box office will probably be expounded upon. But then you also have the whole production issues and the fact that a lot of local people on the internet, rightfully so, and if that's how they want to feel, don't want this movie to exist and aren't happy that someone else is playing Han Solo. But how much does that translate to dollars? You know?
Right.
I mean, I think early tracking, which is still obviously way far away, has like 150 million opening weekend, which is still tremendous.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the 220 that Last Jedi made. So,
you know, it's interesting. Actually, you talked about like that Star Wars fatigue. What do you think would have to happen for some Marvel fatigue? Because I mean, you have Black Panther, you got Infinity War, then you have Deadpool, all coming out in like what, 3 month span?
Yeah, well, again, Deadpool is an MCU
right
separate. I mean, we haven't had it yet. What's going to change? I think unless this whole new Marvel team, sans Iron Man and Captain America, is suddenly less interesting. But like Ant-Man did really fine, did great overseas, and Doctor Strange made good money. Like the low end of this spectrum is like what, 700 million, and like that's not going to happen. I mean, they're going to make probably like 400 minimum here, and
they're going to
probably 1.5 times that overseas. Like these things are just so reliable. And we saw what Guardians of the Galaxy, characters that no one gave a flying fuck about. Like it's happening year over year. And I think, the quality might dip a little bit. And obviously there's detractors and critiques to be had, but like they just are movies and they represent them alongside Star Wars. And then when DC and X-Men are good too, it's like the few movies that really matter, the movies that you need to see right when they happen, and that's just not going to change overnight.
No, it's not. And I also think because they've built up so many different characters and get people to invest in so many different characters. Right. Like you can take chances with these movies. You can give it to, you can do a Thor Ragnarok. You don't have to, always be formulaic or always be true to like the Star Wars, like, I don't know, mindset, which, you get someone like Lord Miller and then you take it away from them. It's like, you're not really trying to take chances. You're trying to make Star Wars movies, which is fine. Star Wars movies are great, but like Marvel's built up such a trust from their fans and such a stan fan base. You can do stuff like this and take chances.
Yeah, I think there's two different sects of fans too. I mean, when Last Jedi does things that aren't what fans wanted or expected or think of when they think of Star Wars, there's outcry.
Right.
And whether that's not because the movie is bad, just because it's different, right? Marvel hasn't even come close to having that kind of situation yet. It's like, oh, the costumes are not comic accurate. Like the portrayal is way different. It's minor shit. People don't have the reverence for comic lore is not the reverence for Star Wars. Right. So again, it is really apples and oranges, but this movie is going to be something for sure. So we'll be talking about it next week.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that. What else we got on the docket?
Janelle Monáe, Friday,
my girl,
day. Dirty Computer, first album from her in, was it 5 years? Right, 2013. Yep. All the lead singles have been fucking awesome. I really like Pink. Tessa Thompson back in that video. Really excited for that record.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. So we have, I mean, already a pretty star-studded. We could talk about, maybe we'll touch on some Atlanta and some other TV. I'm supposedly Barry's episode this week is supposed to be great. Not sure if you've been up on that, but been really enjoying that show. So lots to talk about. If you want to engage with us, go to @MartinSwagger, @Sheeny World Peace, and @Nowstalgia Pod on Twitter. Subscribe on YouTube. Go to SoundCloud, like our stuff. Give us a rating and review on iTunes. We appreciate all the support and feedback. Any last words for the folks, Dave?
No, I mean, Post Malone also drops on Friday. I'll be listening to that out of necessity. Do not have high expectations, of course, but we'll probably report back on that as well.
Go play levels. Peace out.